Good morning, everyone. I'm Michele Tomea from the Italian Chamber of Commerce. Today, we have the pleasure to introduce a new member of the TICC, Dr. Pornpasith Sibunruang, CEO of 88 Cannatek, leading a firm in cannabis revolutionary technology. Mr. Pornprasith has an education at the Assumption College and Assumption Commercial College, and an MBA in Cannabis Business Management. As a career, as you saw, is a CEO and founder of 88 Cannatek, and is also advisor at the Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Cooperatives, and advisor to the chairman of a special committee to consideration and resolution of narcotic category, and in the House of Representatives of Thailand. Mr. Pornprasith, thank you a lot for being with us today, first of all.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and good. Thank you for the Thai Italian Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Michele and Kun Jane. Allow me to have a chance to have a discussion for today. Yeah. Anything that I would like to share, then I will let Mr. Michele to lead the questions, and then I can answer as per what is your question, please.
Let's say new business. Can you share with us how everything started? What was the very beginning for you to start this type of new industry?
So the first question is how it all has begun.
Correct.
So I have to go back this way that actually in the old days, I mean more than 20, 25, 30 years, 40 years back, people know the cannabis only the other name under the name of maybe hemp, maybe pot, maybe weeds or anything. And it was considered as a narcotic category number 5 in Thailand. But later on, when the scientific knowledge has been improved, it can be classified the cannabis in the 2 categories. They know that in the cannabis, both they have on the advantage and the disadvantage. But most of the people normally knows it on the disadvantage side. But recently, with the scientific method, we can classify the cannabis into categories. One, we call it hemp. In Thai, we call it ganchong. And the other one, we call it cannabis. That is, we call it gancha. The difference between these 2 plants is that both of them came from the same family. The family name is the Cannabicaea. This family has 2 kids. One kid is the hemp, and the other kid is the cannabis. The difference between the 2 kids is that both of them has the 2 major substances. One we call it THC. THC came from tetrahydrocannabinoid. And the other substance we call it CBD. CBD is the cannabidiol. THC is mostly found in the cannabis or marijuana, while they have less CBD. But for the hemp, they have less THC and they have more CBD. So the difference between this THC and CBD is that THC, they have the effect on the psychoactive. That's why most of the countries in the world still classify cannabis like a narcotic category number 5, like in Thailand. But for the hemp, because they have less THC and they have more CBD. So recently, Thai law has been changed and amended to allow on the private sector or anybody in Thailand to do the hemp, we call it industrial hemp business in Thailand. So I would like to repeat that the difference between the hemp and the cannabis is the percentage of the THC in each plant. If in the plant that they have THC percentage more than 1% in the seeds and in the flower, that can be considered like a cannabis. But if the THC in the plant for the seeds and the flower is less than 1%, that is considered to be the hemp. So you got to be understand first the difference between the hemp and the cannabis. Then we can carry on what is the benefit and what is the business opportunity for this thing in Thailand.
I see. This one can lead to another question about this type of differences. About cannabis, the plant can be used and processed in many ways. Also, you mentioned in the past, we call it with different names, hemp. Let's say from your point of view, you can actually use it in many categories.
Yep. I have to go back this way that the law and regulatory in Thailand has been amended since the last 2 years, started from July 2019, when the Public Health Ministry, they amended the law that this hemp and the cannabis under the category of narcotic, category number 5, can be used in both medical cannabis and in the industrial hemp. For the cannabis, as I mentioned before, that because they have the THC is more than 1% in the flowers, so it's still considered that it cannot be commercialized at the moment. The only way that you can do the business on the cannabis is that you have to go on the medical purpose only. You cannot go into the industrial scale at the moment. And the law stipulate that only the government agency together with the community enterprise can do and operate the cannabis medical in Thailand. But when you talk about the medical cannabis in Thailand, there will be separate into 2 issues also, that Thai traditional medical cannabis and universal medical cannabis. So the medical cannabis can be classified into 2 categories. One is a Thai traditional medicine and the other one is the universal medicine. But for the hemp, the medical cannabis law has been amended in July 2019. But the law and the regulation of the hemp has been amended lately, only 7 months back, that is in January 2021 this year. So the law has been amended that now all the private sector, individual or community enterprise or cooperative can proceed to do the hemp business in Thailand under the control and the regulation and the license under the Food and Drug Administration permit. Okay.
That's also very interesting because this one can lead also to the next question. Let's say mentioning that at the moment you can use the compound of cannabis for medical purposes. At the moment we understand that the target customers will be probably pharmaceutical company or hospitals. Let's say, what do you think about this, about the target customer? We saw, for example, in some European countries or in some states of America, United States, for example, they can use it for private consumers.
I think you
what
have
is your view in this situation?
I think you have to be clearly understand on this one. For the medical cannabis at the moment, no private sector is allowed to do it in Thailand. It has to do by the government agency only, and only two departments in Thailand that they are allowed to do the medical cannabis is all belong to the Public Health Ministry. The name of the 2 agencies is that we call it Department of Thai Traditional and Alternative Medicine. So they are responsible and they are allowed to do on the Thai traditional medical cannabis. And the other agency is that the government pharmaceutical organization that they are allowed to do it medical cannabis on the universal formula. So these 2 agencies only allow to do the medical cannabis in Thailand. No private pharmaceutical factory cannot do it at the moment. But these 2 organizations, because they need the raw materials to produce on the medicine formula, they have to go and coordinate with the community enterprise to do the planting on their behalf. Okay, that is on the medical cannabis. So the medical cannabis at the moment for the next 3-4 years, for the next 3.5 years, private sector is not allowed to do it because the immediate amendment of the law stipulate that from 2019 until 2024, for the first 5 years from the 2019 onwards, only the government agency that I have been mentioned, the two government agencies, GPO and the DTEM, will be only allowed to do the medical cannabis in Thailand because they have the TICC, that is the psychoactive substance in that category. But if you talk about the hemp is also more or less they are the same like the cannabis, but the only difference is that the percentage of the THC in the flower and in the seeds. So if you can plant the hemp or you can do the business from upstream to downstream of the hemp under the condition and the regulation of the Food and Drug Administration, then you can start to do business in Thailand. And that hemp business can be considered to be on the business purpose of like a dietary supplement or either on the food supplement. And they have a lot of things that they have the CBD substance that can be go into the consumer product and into the cosmetic category.
Yeah, I understand. And let's say in Thailand, basically, we are still scouting how to develop this industry. So I understand probably at the moment it's only on government level. But yeah, it's very interesting. Something to go a bit further in our interview is also related to the challenges or obstacles in doing this type of business, including guidelines for solving problems that arise. What has come to your mind when we talk about challenges and problems?
Okay, I think we have to forget the medical cannabis business for the next 3 years for the private sector. But regarding the hemp business in Thailand, I think because this is the first time in the history that the government, they have been amended the law and allow the narcotic plant to be come up on the economic cash crop. Okay, so this is the new thing. Nobody in Thailand ever do this business in before, but in Europe and in the United States, they have been doing this business for quite a long time. I can say that maybe 20, 30 years before us. So the challenging of the things that anybody want to come into the industrial hemp business is that you got to be, the most important thing is that you got to understand the law because it is quite complicated and it is quite detailed. You will never imagine how complicated it is, starting from the seeding, starting from the plantation, starting from the extraction, starting from the selling. You will need at least 6 licenses from the Food and Drug Administration to do this business in Thailand. But one thing you got to be understand is that because the cannabis business in Thailand is illegal for the last 60 years. So for the past 60 years, we do not have any chance to develop the seeding or the genetic of the hemp and the cannabis. So when the government allow the private sector to go on in this new business, the first problem is that we do not have the genetic or the seeds to plant the hemp. Because if you don't have the seeds, you cannot go further. So that's why in the first 5 years, from this year onwards, the government allow to import the seeds from overseas to be planted in Thailand. Okay, because we do not have the local land race for the seed at the moment. And the second thing is that because they try to protect this new business in Thailand, all the CBD finished product, all the CBD extract isolate, distillate cannot be imported into Thailand for the next 5 years until 2026. So it is the chance of the operator in Thailand if they want to do the hemp business, because for the first 5 years, we will be protected that there will be no overseas finished product, or there will be no overseas CBD isolate or CBD distillate that need to be infused into the consumer product or dietary supplement to be imported to Thailand. But the problem is that, like I mentioned, that is we have to understand that we are doing the narcotic business that the government allow it to be on the economy now. So for sure, there will be a lot of terms and conditions and regulation that you have to comply with. And it is not that easy, but I cannot say that it is difficult if you understand the law properly. But you got to make sure that you understand the law before you proceed on this one, because as I mentioned to you that you will need 6 licenses from the Food and Drug Administration before you can proceed on this one. And you got to understand and decided from the beginning that you want to be the stakeholder on the upstream, or you want to be the stakeholder in the midstream, or you want to be the stakeholder in the downstream. When I talk about the 6 license that you need to obtain from the FDA, it means firstly you got to need to have a license to import the seeds. The second one is that you got to have the license to planting the seeds. The third one is that you need to have the license to selling the seeds. The fourth one is that you got to have the license to do the extraction factory. Okay. And the fifth one is that for the export. And the sixth one is that for the import seeds that you need to be to do the research with the local land-raised seeds to make sure that in the next 5 years, we do not need to depend on the import seeds from the overseas. Yeah.
Interesting, because let's say this industry can actually open up to several different branches, let's say research and development, and at the same time it's something that a company can approach, of course, working with the Thai partners knowledgeable in law, absolutely. But I believe that from what you say, this is like the beginning stage in which Thailand is kind of screening and discovering how to manage the cannabis business. But let's say it seems very interesting also about the research and development for the seeds and DNA and extraction. So let's say it could be actually interesting for locally, but also to become a hub in the production, because I believe that also cannabis can grow well in Thailand, right?
It depends, but you got to have understand this one that, okay, when we talk about the cannabis, I would like to repeat that when we talk about the cannabis, we will talk under the medical cannabis, that it is not the economy to do for the business at the moment. So everybody is talking about the hemp at the moment. But like I mentioned, hemp and cannabis, they are the same family. They are the brother and sister. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you want to do the hemp business in Thailand, you got to apply for the license, and you got to be decided you want to be on the upstream, midstream, or downstream of the ecosystem. But at the same time, when you mentioned that Thailand seems to be good with the condition and the weather, and the other things regarding to be the planting and to be the hub of the industrial hemp business. But for the industrial hemp, you got to be understand that it can be separated into 3 categories, whether you want to do it or not. If you want to do the hemp, industrial hemp business, you got to decide it whether you want to do it for the fiber purpose, because the fiber belongs to one genetic of the seed. Or you want to do the hemp for the grain, for the hemp grain purpose, because that needs another kind of the genetic seeds. Or you want to do the hemp for the flowers, because that also need another genetic seeds. And the value of the investment, the value of the business, the value of the economy is totally different. But when you talk about the hemp business in Thailand, everybody in Thailand now, they are thinking to do the hemp business for the flower, because the flower is rich with the CBD substance, and the CBD substance is quite, the value is quite high comparing with the hemp that we have been growing for the grain, or the hemp that we are growing for the fiber purpose. But you got to be understand that all parts of the hemp, either it can be the flowers, the root, the stalk, the trunk, or the leaves, they are all valuable. When you talk about the laws in Thailand for the hemp, they only when you grow the hemp, you got to make sure and you got to be declared to the FDA that the seeds that you are planting is the hemp seed. It is not the cannabis seed. And this one can be verified by the percentage of THC in the seed. And then when you grow the hemp until it reaches the flower stage, you got to be tested before you cut the flower that the THC percentage in the flower is less than 1%. Then it can be considered as a hemp flower. Because if you cut the flowers and the percentage THC in that flower is more than 1%, then it can be considered the cannabis flower, not the hemp flower. And that flower will be falling under the cannabis law category, not the hemp law category. So when you do all these things, you got to be sure that you can be controlled in every days of the planting, because easily it can be, if you are not professional enough, when you grow the hemp in the beginning, but at the end of the day, it can be turned out to be the cannabis, not the hemp like you intended to grow it in the beginning. And in Thailand or in general, we can grow the hemp in the 3 different styles. One is for the outdoor, okay? And the second one is in the greenhouse. And the third one is in the plant factory. So the value of the investment in each kind of the plantation and each kind of the purpose of your plantation is also different. So you got to be decided when you do this thing. You want to do the hemp business for flower, which is the high value commodity, or you want to do the hemp for the grain, that is on the medium value, or you want to do the hemp for the fiber, that is the low value. But one thing is the advantage of Thailand, I think, is that we are the first and the only one country at the moment in Asia that we have been amended the law on the hemp, while the other countries in the Asia is looking at us. And I think sooner or later, Thailand can be the hub or will be the leader to proceed on the industrial hemp business within the this year or next year onwards. Because if you look at the things that it has been heard recently in the few months back, that a lot of companies, either the local Thai company in the stock market or in the overseas company, they are eyeing to do business in Thailand, and they are doing it in the large scale, on the industrial scale, because every part of the hemp, it is the new cash crop for Thailand. That will be help the living standard of the Thai farmers, and it will be helping the income of the Thai country at the same time. But I believe that there's a lot of overseas partners that they are eyeing on Thailand, that they would like to relocate their business from US or from Europe to do the industrial hemp in Thailand for the time being, because of the cost. I think comparing on the production cost, comparing on the cost and the tax and the other thing, we are more expensive. Yeah.
This is absolutely an advantage that you mentioned. Of course, it was leading to the potential of economic growth in this, because absolutely we see Thailand is pretty advanced, as you said, in legislation, regulation. So perhaps this advantage can actually be fruitful for several companies, but also for Thailand itself.
Yes.
And let's say basically, perhaps leading to a conclusion, let's say you mentioned about the economic growth potential. So let's say the good thing is like cannabis and hemp can actually be used and exploited in every part of the plant. But also, let's say, benefit for the entrepreneurs. Do you have an idea of a benchmark of investment? Of course, we mentioned before that, for example, a company coming from abroad, they must find a good partner in Thailand because the regulation is far from being easy to be understood. And also you need to have a legal support to find out the way to actually get to the 6 licenses that you mentioned, but overall can be beneficial for several stream of business. Would you like to give us, let's say, a conclusion or final thought about?
Okay, for the we will not talk about the medical cannabis like I mentioned because we cannot, private sector cannot do it for the next 3 years. But if we are talking about the industrial hemp that is containing the CBD that we can use in the other purpose and the value is quite a lot. You got to be understand one thing. Normally, for the corporate law in Thailand, if you are the foreigner, you will be allowed to hold 49% percentage as a shareholder in a Thai company, right? But in this industry, cannabis industry, they have the specific law stipulate that the foreigner cannot be holding more than 33% or 1/3 of the shareholders in the company that doing this business. Okay, that is the first thing that the overseas people have to look into that area. And the other thing is that the economic value of the hemp industry, I think that will be quite a lot because if you look at the value of the herb, I mean the local herb that Thailand is exporting at the moment, we are doing it something around 200 billion baht per annum at the moment. With the additional value of the hemp, both in the raw materials and both in the finished goods product, I think that can be more than double of the value of the herb that we are exporting at the moment. Because you got to be understand that this CBD or either the grain from the hemp or the hemp seed oil, this is all the high value product. So it can be contribute quite a number of the income to the country and to the farmer who is the groundwork. Because if we don't have the seed, if we don't have the farmers to plant this thing, we will not have enough raw materials to proceed on the extraction to get the hemp food, hemp milk, or hemp seed oil, or hemp protein bar, or either CBD product like the dietary supplement that they have the benefit to preventive on the body of the human as well. So I think the industrial hemp is quite interesting business in Thailand. Overseas partner is eyeing on it. Okay, local company also lying on it. Everybody is talking about the value of the things, but I would like to have the warning that you are doing the business under the narcotic category number 5. In the old days, you cannot do it, but because of the amendment of the law, now you can do it. So it will be not that easy to comply with the laws and regulation because you were allowed to do it, but we have to comply with the law and regulation of the 6 license that I have been mentioned. But my recommendation is that everybody is talking about the value. Everybody is talking about the economic value of this thing. It is, but you got to make sure that you have to invest a lot on this thing. You got to have a knowledge how to do this thing, how to plant it, how to select the seeds, how to have the good technology on the extraction facility, because it is a scientific method, okay? And then when you have upstream or the seeds and the plantation, You have the midstream on the extraction facility. You have the downstream on the finished good products. That can be like a total ecosystem of this thing. My recommendation for the conclusion is that you got to understand the law. You need to find a good lawyer and make sure that they understand the industry. Because if you did not understand the law, you will keep asking yourself why it is so complicated. But once and whenever you understand the law and you can comply with the law and regulation, then you can start doing business. Because nowadays people think, okay, if I want to plant the hemp, tomorrow I can go to the grocery shop and buy the hemp seeds. No way, sir. You got to apply for the quota. You have to apply for the license first with the FDA. And you cannot import the seeds until you or your contract farming is allowed to plant it. So it takes time, and the complication of the procedure maybe keep you annoying, but you got to make sure that if you want to do this business, you have to comply with the law. That is my advice to any people or any party that want to come into this business. And the other thing is that if you want to be on the upstream, like the planting or the seeding, you got to make sure that you have the midstream to obtain your raw materials. Because if you don't have the midstream of the extraction factory of the CBD to obtain your raw materials, then you are stuck. So it seems to me that if you want to do this business, you got to do it by yourself, from upstream, midstream, and downstream by yourself. You cannot rely on the other people. Not like the rice that you grow the rice. You can have the rice mill to waiting to buy your rice. But this narcotic category number 5, legally hemp, not many people will have the capacity or ability to do the extraction facility like a rice mill that they want to buy the rice from the farmer. And the other thing is that this is the high value product. So there will be no cheap investment in this one. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. We cannot improvise in this type of business. Actually, it looks like very, very much into something very specific, requires a great scientific knowledge, support, and of course, budget. We believe so. But anyhow, for today, I really appreciate your time. It was very insightful, sharing your experience with us. And anything that we can do, we are very happy to welcome 88 Cannatek in the network of the Thai Italian Chamber of Commerce. So it was a pleasure having this conversation with you.
So let me have my last recommendation is that if anybody in the Thai Italian Chamber of Commerce, is interesting in this new business in Thailand, okay, and you need additional information, or you need to have a personal discussion with me to see the opportunity on this thing, because at the moment at the Cannatek, we are doing the business from upstream to downstream. It means we have our US partner that we can import the seeds by ourselves. We have the plantation area in the 3 provinces in Thailand, that is in Chiang Rai, in Suphanburi, and in Samut Songkhram, okay? And then we have our own extraction factory that we have the MOU with the government agency. At the same time, we also developing our finished product at the moment from both the hemp grain and from the hemp CBD. So anybody in the Thai Italian Chamber of Commerce or any company or overseas company that you can, that they want to have more details, how to proceed on this business in Thailand, then we are happy to be discussed with them if they want Absolutely. Our recommendation. Yeah, because like I mentioned to you that the law and the regulation is quite complicated. Even some lawyers, they are still not unable to understand. But we have been go through all that storm already. Our company has been set up in February no, sorry, in 2019, before the law amended, because we have understand that the law is moving. So we have been prepare everything. We have been study everything. Maybe we are ahead of the other company a little bit. Okay. So anybody that would like to have more details or would like to see the opportunity or the potential to do this kind of industrial hemp and medical business in Thailand, I think we are happy to meet with them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is also our job as a bilateral chamber of commerce, like Thai and Italian Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much for your time today. And of course, we will make sure to liaise with potential partner or entrepreneur that are interested in this business with you and your company.
Yeah, sorry that we don't have that much time, because if I have to explain everything from A to Z regarding this industrial hemp business and medical cannabis, it will take at least 2 or 3 hours.
We can have other interviews in the weeks to come, and also I know already that your team will send us an article to publish on the magazine of the Chamber of Commerce. So let's say we try to keep informed about our readers, our members, and of course we will be very happy to introduce you to some important partner in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. And again, have a good weekend and stay safe.
You too. Thank you.
ขอบคุณนะคะ
Thank you very much.